Hi, I'm Andy Hurley of eRecruitFit. Over the next few minutes, I will share a case study of how a particular Division I football program implemented our leading-edge science and technology platform to identify, select, and develop student athletes who fit their unique culture. Any review of eRecruitFit starts with the impact on the individual student athlete. Our core purpose is to assist student athletes in identifying an environment where they have a higher probability of succeeding. At eRecruitFit, we see it as a moral imperative to help college-bound student athletes seek out an institution, a program, a team that aligns with who they are as individuals, maximizing their ability to realize their potential and thereby reducing stressors that can have serious personal consequences, a matter the NCAA has deemed to be a critical issue in collegiate sports. In pursuit of this mission, there are significant competitive, financial, and operational benefits that can accrue to teams who accept the validity and reliability of psychometric science and use it in tandem with other evaluation tools in the recruiting process. In the intensely competitive world of college athletics, can you as a coach or an administrator ignore the edge provided by behavioral science that is now used by a majority of Fortune 500 companies in their personnel decisions? Before delving into our case study, there is an important fact to share about the effectiveness of the current practices of college athletics. The NCAA has determined that 54% of all student athletes receiving aid fail to reach their senior year at the institution in which they started their college career. Recruiting tactics today fail 50% of the time. Suffice it to say, the current model is flawed. In our case study, the first step involved a brief session with the coaching staff to inform them of the behavioral scales that the eRecruitFit PSA inventory reliably and accurately measure. Armed with this knowledge, the coaching staff was asked to complete a survey to provide a subjective ranking of their current team based upon two criteria. Each member of the team was rated on their football ability in comparison to other Division I football players across the country at their position. And two, a rating from 1 to 10 of those individuals in their program that they would like to duplicate in the recruiting process based upon the 25 behavioral scales measured by eRecruitFit. The results were tabulated and shared with the coaching staff. The subjective ratings were plotted on a two-dimensional grid with athletic ability being represented on the vertical axis and cultural fit represented on the horizontal. The subjective ratings were consistent with behavioral and performance distributions found in most organizations, with 15 to 20% of the candidates falling in the ideal zone, those that you would want to duplicate in the selection process, and 15 to 20% at the other end of the scale falling in the imperfect zone, representing those candidates that you'd just as soon avoid moving forward. The balance of the candidates represented the average performers in terms of their behavioral traits. The next step in the process involved all current members of the team taking the PSA inventory. This was accomplished in a single 45-minute team meeting. The objective data from the completed PSA inventory was reconciled with the subjective ratings of the coaches to establish a custom performance model specific to this particular team. The custom performance model was derived by contrasting the ideal candidates with the imperfect candidates to create the behavioral DNA for this particular program. The performance model was pressure tested by issuing each team member a fit score based on the eRecruitFit custom model created. As you will note, the ideal candidates, as determined by the coach's subjective analysis, average a fit score of 86. The majority of the team in the middle grouping averaged a fit score of 74, and the imperfect candidates averaged a score of 67. Well outside the ideal range. As I'm sure you will detect upon closer examination, the eRecruitFit model is not perfect and was not in this case. Of the 31 candidates subjectively rated by the coaching staff in the ideal or imperfect category, the eRecruitFit fit score missed on 3 for an error rate of 9.6%. When you reconcile our 9.6% error rate with the current recruiting error rate of 54% as we established earlier, eRecruitFit looks good by comparison. When you take the analytics one step deeper and you look to monetize the value of eRecruitFit, the results are eye-opening. The coaching staff was asked to identify the team members that if they had it to do over again, who they would keep. In effect, they developed their recruiting target zone. Each program draws their lines differently. That's what makes each program's culture unique. In creating their recruiting target zone, the coaches acknowledged that, in hindsight, there were 29 mistakes made, a rate consistent with the 54% recruiting error rate experienced by all programs. This is where it gets interesting. Let's assume the PSA inventory was administered during the recruiting process when the information regarding an individual's behavioral composition is at best inconclusive and in most cases outright unknown. While eRecruitFit cannot and does not account for the 10 individuals who later deemed to be a mistake based upon an assessment of their athletic ability, of the 19 that fell outside of the recruiting target zone based on their behavioral traits, eRecruitFit would have flagged 9 as being well outside the ideal range with a fit score below 69. There were another 9 that scored outside the ideal range with a fit score of 70 to 84. That would have prompted more precise evaluation. At this particular school, the average cost of a 4-year scholarship is over $192,000. The 18 recruits that scored outside of the ideal range represent $3.4 million in scholarships that missed. What would it have meant to this program if those scholarships were spent on student athletes with a higher probability of succeeding? What if, as a result of a more targeted scientific approach to recruiting, the $3.4 million scholarships was invested in student athletes who developed into productive upperclassmen who are so critical to building and sustaining success? Those juniors and seniors who define your culture and, when you get right down to it, are the one upon which your livelihood depends. What if you could erase some of the mistakes made in the recruiting process? What would it mean to your program competitively, financially, and culturally? There's a reason that the use of psychometric assessments in private industry has experienced a 15% growth rate in each of the last 5 years. The science of predicting a candidate's probability of success on your team into your culture is real, and it's undeniable. It's eRecruitFit.